And you are good.
Thank you. I call this meeting of the Clinton Township Board of Education for April 27th, 2020 to order. The time is 6:34. In accordance with the provisions of the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Laws of 1975, adequate notice of this meeting was provided through public notice on January 8th, 2020. It was sent to 3 newspapers designated by the board: Hunterdon County Democrat, Hunterdon Review, and the Express Times. The start time of the meeting was amended on April 22nd, 2020 by posting on the district website and setting notification to the township. Ms. Morris, may I have an attendance roll call, please?
Sure. Ms. Brennan?
Present.
Dr. Brasher?
Here.
Ms. Brooks?
Here.
Ms. Emery?
Present.
Ms. Grant? Ms. Grant? Dr. Grantham?
Present.
Mr. Hornick?
Present.
Mrs. Kaltenbach?
Present.
Dr. Rehamaki?
Present.
And Ms. Grant?
Here.
I believe she's on. I haven't heard her say present. It's
Here.
Oh, there we are. Okay, thank you. Okay, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Ms. Emery, can you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Absolutely. Pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the
United States of America,
and
to the republic for which it stands,
one
nation,
under God,
indivisible,
with liberty
and justice
for all.
Thank you. Dr. Rehamaki, can you please be the process guardian?
Yes.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening. We are going to go right into executive session. So, Ms. Morris, can you please read the executive session statement?
Sure.
Thank you.
Whereas while the Senator Byron and Bear Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-6 et sec, requires all meetings of the Clinton Township Board of Education to be held in public, NJSA 10:4-12b sets forth 9 types of matters that may be lawfully discussed in executive session, i.e. without the public being permitted to attend. And whereas the Clinton Township Board of Education has determined that the following issues are permitted by NJSA 10:4-12b to be discussed without the public in attendance and shall be discussed during an executive session. Whereas the nature of the matters to be discussed, reviewed, or heard before the board, detailed as specifically as possible without undermining the need for confidentiality pursuant to NJSA 18A:37-13.2 et sec, shall include personnel, CTEA, collective bargaining negotiations, and legal issues. Whereas the length of the executive session is estimated to be 60 minutes, after which the meeting shall reconvene and proceed with business wherein action may be taken. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Clinton Township Board of Education will go into executive session for the above stated reasons. Be it further resolved that the board hereby declares that its discussion of the aforementioned subject will be made public at such time as the reason for confidentiality no longer exists.
Looking for a motion?
Motion.
Is that you, Catherine?
Yep.
Yeah. Second?
Second.
I heard Scott. So we are going to move into executive session. It is 6:38.
We need to vote.
Oh, sorry, I'm sorry. I was not reading the right paper. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The time is 6:38. Okay.
You are good now.
Thank you. I am looking for a motion to reconvene public session.
Motion.
Okay, that's Allison. Second?
Second.
Is that Kate?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, the time is now 7:55. I'm waiting to make sure we have all members of the board back. One moment. Oh, I think we have everybody now. Actually, can we just make sure? 1, 2, 3. Yes. Okay, so everyone is back. Okay.
We don't have Mr. Gagliardi.
Oh. Would he show up as a panelist?
Yes, he was invited as a panelist.
Oh, I see him in the attendees list, so he might be there.
Okay.
I will add him.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. Okay. Hello and welcome to the Board of Education meeting. For anyone who has not joined us before, all members of the public will be muted until the public comment sections. If you'd like to make a comment, please click the participation button at the bottom of your screen on the bottom right-hand side. Or center is what we're doing a slightly different format. Once we start the public, and you'll click raise hand. Once we start the public comment section, we will go down the list and unmute those who wish to speak. First, I'd like to take a moment to talk about the negotiations between Clinton Township Board of Education and the Clinton Township Education Association. I am extremely happy to announce that both negotiations committees have agreed upon a memorandum of agreement, corresponding salary guides, and finalized language in the body of our contract. The membership of the Clinton Township Education Association ratified this contract, and tonight, the Clinton Township Board of Education will vote to approve the contract between both parties. Therefore, I would like to move the following resolution at this time. Action item 20P 237, which reads, whereas the negotiations agreement entered into between the Board of Education and the Clinton Township Education CTEA expired on June 30th, 2017, and whereas the representatives of the Board of Education and the CTEA engaged in negotiations and reached memorandums of agreement dated March 4th, 2020 and April 15th, 2020, and whereas the representatives of the Board of Education and the CTEA have agreed upon salary guides that conform with the memorandums of agreement, and whereas the CTEA ratified the memorandums of agreement and said agreed upon salary guides on April 24th, 2020, and whereas the Board of Education wishes to ratify the memorandums of agreement and agreed upon salary guides. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the memorandum of agreement and agreed upon salary guides are hereby ratified, and that the Board of Education hereby authorizes execution of the agreement effective July 1st, 2017 to June 30, 2021. Looking for a motion.
Motion.
That's Catherine.
Yes.
Thank you. Second.
Second.
Sorry, someone who I couldn't tell who it was.
I think it was me and Scott. Pick either one of us.
I will pick Kaltenbach. Thank you. Discussion?
Anna, I have a question. You're not going to review the terms of it and then allow public comment at all? So it just seems like the public doesn't know what is encompassed in the agreement, and we're voting without them knowing.
To my understanding, this is what has been done previously, that the terms were not presented and done as a presentation. I did ask, and if this was something, and I was told that, and when I looked back, there was no presentation to that effect from the previous one.
I'm just asking you if you had the intent on sharing with it publicly before we voted. So your answer is no.
Yes, that would be. I do not have it prepared for that based on previous.
No, Lonnie. I mean, it's fine. I mean, you're the board president. Do what you see fit. But I just asked.
Hearing no other questions, Ms. Morris, can we please have a roll call vote? Do I have Ms. Morris?
Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. I think I was muted. Okay, sorry about that. Dr. Brasher,
Yes.
Ms. Brooks,
In keeping with my position as a conflicted member, I will abstain.
Ms. Emery,
Yes.
Ms. Grant,
No.
Dr. Grantham,
Yes.
Mr. Hornick,
Yes.
Ms. Kaltenbach,
Yes.
Dr. Rahamaki,
Yes.
and Ms. Brennan.
Yes,
So moved.
thank you. One of the other items on tonight's agenda this evening is the budget for the 2020-21 school year. At this point, I'd like to ask the superintendent, Dr. Cohn, to review the budget development process for us, as well as give us the report of the superintendent.
Thank you. I'll start by discussing the creation of the budget and our timeline. The budget creation is not done in a silo, and the process is collaborative with the administrative team. As far as our timeline, of course, we're always, thinking about money and the following year, and these things are assessed. During the December time period through January, the budget preparation is done by the administrative team. January and February, the budgets are then submitted to the BA. And in February, we had departmental and budget and building budget reviews with the business administrator. March 2020, at a leadership meeting, the budget was deemed complete after multiple meetings and lots of time spent. And March 20th, the budget was submitted to the executive county superintendent and subsequently approved. In regard to budget increases, they include staffing positions in the special ed area, some educational items such as Chromebooks. Areas of reduction were made by determining need and looking at actuals, which means the real dollars amount spent this year. Also, purchase planning to buy through bulk, as the BA has determined and has gotten some smart purchasing advice, as well as looking at other purchase options, such as leasing Chromebooks for our refresh rather than purchasing. Our initial reductions in administrative support were reconsidered, especially with the changes in the last 5 weeks in our collective world. And subsequently, we will not be needing to reduce those. And this also does not impact the bottom line in our budget totals. I look forward to the presentation. Excuse me. For my report this evening, I'd like to begin first to welcome all participants and guests and apologize for any confusion over our pre-registration process for this meeting. Our intent was to make the meeting more secure and certainly not to preclude anyone from participating. As we continue to navigate our way through our new remote environments for both meetings and instruction, we appreciate your patience and understanding. And I'd also like to we've had so many parents reach out and thank us for what we're doing. We're all in it together, as they say, and it's a learning process. So with all those thoughts in mind about our new world and what we're coping with, I hope all of our CTSD families and staff are managing well during this unprecedented time. The COVID-19 pandemic has had an impact on all of us, our families, our friends, and our loved ones, for we have all experienced some measure of loss during this time. I guess the eternal teacher in me hopes the lessons that come from this time period include patience, gratitude, and perspective. We wish you all the best. The enrollment report this evening, I report an increase, which makes me very happy. We are up 2 students, so we have 1,223. Incidentally, I'll be tabling SU 026 and SU 027 at this time. Closure time frame. The governor had announced last week that schools would remain closed until at least May 15th. This announcement was then followed by statements about safety upon return, and so no further information has been received on that. CTSD is planning, just as we plan for closure, we will be planning for reopening. And please keep in mind that any reopening will be directed by the governor and the Department of Health as they guide us through that process. Regarding the end of year planning, it's a rather difficult and uncertain time in things even such as end of year. What are we doing? And with this, the uncertainty of a reopening date and the potential requirements of continued social distancing, it is difficult to set firm plans for events such as graduation. At this time, options for traditional as well as alternative graduation are being considered. And again, no decision will be made without the permission of the governor and the Department of Health. Currently, other events that we have scheduled, we are reviewing various options for kindergarten registration, our staff evaluation, and the metrics required by the NJDOE, including other events such as I mentioned, graduation, move-up day, and a host of other activities. We've all been, the administrative team has been in discussion with PTA and various stakeholders regarding these events. So certainly as we have more information, we will be sharing and reaching out to all of you. So thank you.
Thank you. So does that leave anything to be voted on through your report?
Yes, I would like to, it's SU 025 may be voted on. 26 and 27 should be tabled.
Okay, so I am looking for a motion for 20 SU 25.
Motion?
Allison. Second?
Second.
With it, Ms. Brooks?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Second. Okay, discussion? Seeing none, can we get a roll call vote, please, Ms. Morse?
Dr. Brasher?
Yes.
Ms. Brooks?
Yes.
Ms. Emery?
Yes.
Ms. Grant?
Yes.
Dr. Grantham?
Yes.
Mr. Hornick?
Yes.
Ms. Kaltenbach?
Yes.
Dr. Rahamaki?
Yes.
Ms. Brennan?
Yes.
So moved.
Thank you. At this time, we've reached the first public comment section. If anyone,
Point of order, Ms. Brennan, point of order, please. I would like to request that perhaps you would consider moving the presentation of the budget ahead of the first public comment section so that the public can hear the presentation and then make a comment on the budget.
I 100% appreciate that. I was planning on opening an additional public comment section after the budget presentation. Would that be acceptable to you?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
So if anyone in the audience would like to address the board, please click the participant button at the bottom of your screen. On the bottom right-hand side, there should be an option to raise hand. We will recognize you and unmute your microphone. If you could then please state your name and address. Each person will have up to 3 minutes. We will attempt to answer all questions once the speaker has finished. If there are phone numbers showing at the time of public comment, we will unmute them to allow them the option to comment since they are unable to use the other feature. Also, after the budget presentation, we will open the floor for additional public comment on only budget-related questions. This comment section will be limited to 30 minutes. Brian, I'm going to ask you to help me.
Yes, we have 3 phone numbers. I am going to unmute phone number ending in 8927. You are unmuted.
Do you have a comment? Okay.
No, thank you.
Oh, thank you. Please, and I guess number 4603.
4603 is unmuted.
No comment, thank you.
Okay, and then our last number is 2472.
That number is unmuted.
Do you have a public comment?
That number has been remuted.
Okay. Are there any public comments? I see no hands raised, but I do not know if I have the visibility of seeing hands.
You will see hands. There are no hands.
Okay. Okay, then I am going to close the floor to this public comment section. We will now go on to the report of the business administrator, Ms. Morris. I will let you take it on.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Just one quick reminder for the board members that the ethics disclosure is due by April 30th, so the end of the month. If anyone has not completed it and still is not unable to locate the link, please let me know, and I will make sure that it is resent to you. My second item is, before talking about the budget, I have a presentation just to share with everyone regarding some of the fiscal and operational impacts of the COVID-19 closures. So I'm going to just share my screen. It'll just take me one moment. Brian, I'm not sure if I'm a co-host. Am I able to share?
You should be able to share even just as a panelist.
Okay, great. Thank you. It says it's participant screen sharing is disabled.
You are now a co-host.
Sorry about that. Okay. So the first thing I want to share is the legislation S3327. We refer to it as the If School is Open legislation. And what that says, it's a COVID law that's been passed, is that school operations and financial activities in New Jersey are currently directed by executive orders and newly passed legislation. And this one tells us that schools are required to pay all of our employees and vendors as if school is open. This includes spring sports stipends, lunch aids, teaching assistants who may or may not be currently on task, busing invoices, even though we're not transporting students, and tuition. So these are not within our control to choose to pay or not pay. They are legislated. And I'm not sure that the public is fully aware of that. Also, we see some challenges that are coming potentially with cash flow issues and the ability to meet that mandate as well as others. Just a quick cycle of kind of to see how the dominoes sort of collectively fall and how that could affect us. So the tax levy dollars that the district receives make up 90% of our revenue. There's an executive order that you may or may not be aware of allowing homeowners to defer paying their mortgage without penalty for 3 months. Those mortgage payments include the municipal tax payments. So without the revenue arriving to the mortgage company, and those mortgage companies could potentially withhold payments to the township. The hope is that they have enough in escrow from timely payments to make the Q2 payment, but we do see where there could be problems in Q3 where the money in escrow will have already been diminished. The lack of revenue to the township will limit their cash flows, and it's already resulted in delayed tax levy payments to the school district. And although they have been in communication with us, which is appreciated, and we're all working together, we are currently short on our April tax payment, and we do have a date where it's promised, but we are currently seeing delays as a result already. So further delays are something that we need to anticipate and to be prepared to manage if they should happen. Another item, A3902, the tax levy deferral. This legislation would allow local municipalities to defer making their tax levy payments to school districts, and it's currently pending. It is strongly opposed by the NJEA, the New Jersey School Boards Association, the New Jersey Association of School Business Officials, and the Principal and Administrator Association. This would all but guarantee a delay in our tax levy payments, and it could end up requiring operational changes within the district, which as of yet are undetermined and have not been discussed. A vote on this bill has not been scheduled at this time. Hopefully with the strong opposition, it won't be scheduled for a vote, but it is something that we have to anticipate as a possibility as we make plans moving forward regarding our finances. Our revenues budgeted for the fiscal year include preschool tuition that's paid by our parents, and that's going to be reduced by 30% or more because we won't be charging tuition for time when the students can't attend. So we will be refunding anyone who has paid beyond March 31st of 2020, and parents are only obligated to pay through March at this time. So the deposits which are credited to June would be returned, assuming we don't return to school, and that would take place at the end of the school year. Any possible savings that could be realized by the district are really insignificant. Some of those include a possible 10% discount from our transportation vendors for the days that school was closed. 100 and ESC is going to, they've already let us know that we'll be getting a true-up invoice in June, and any savings will be passed along, and we anticipate that to be approximately 10%. Del Val has already sent a letter noting a savings of about $3,700 for the remainder of the year. Another item for possible savings would be usage of our utilities, because no one's using the buildings, where we could see some savings. But unfortunately, the timing is this time of year, we don't really use heat or air conditioning right now, which are the biggest drivers of electric usage. So our savings in that area will not be significant as well. We could see some reduction in overtime costs because our custodians and our maintenance workers are currently, our maintenance workers have been working full-time through this entire period. Our custodians are rotating in and are now going to start working on some of the summer projects. But the main driver of custodial overtime would be winter sports because of the weekend gym usage. And without sports happening at this time, we don't have any of that happening. So that also won't be a significant savings for the year because we've already accrued most of the overtime during the winter. We no longer need substitute teachers. I shouldn't say that completely. We are not using as many substitute teachers because of the remote learning. So we will see a savings on our per diem costs as related to paying substitutes. State aid right now is in a state of uncertainty. The state of New Jersey extended their fiscal year from ending on June 30th to September 30th. The fiscal year for school districts is still ending on June 30th. We were not given an extension. So the timing of state aid payments to schools is undetermined at this time. There's a possibility that they will just continue as if the budget had passed and they'll give us our new state aid dollars starting in July. There's also a possibility that the current numbers from this year will continue straight on through. And it's possible that we won't get state aid at all from our last state aid payment, which is in May, until the new fiscal year in September. So that would affect our cash flows if that were to happen. And again, as of right now, the guidance is it's uncertain as to how that's all going to happen. The extra time that the extension for the state has put into place will allow for changes to the state budget and its implementation. And in the past, when there have been issues with the state budgets, we have had our state aid impacted, and our state aid revenue could be reduced significantly based on the economic impact at the state level. But we will not know that until information is released to us and received by the state. So that's also some revenue that we cannot, it's not a certainty as it would normally be. We don't know when we'll be receiving it. Senator Sweeney has a bill currently presented that would allow for some public employees to be placed on a furlough. And the objective of doing that is to move the payroll costs from local budgets to unemployment rolls. And initially, we thought school districts would not be included in this, and then later guidance came down that it's only the only employees that would not be subject to furlough would be those who are involved with teaching. So some possible groups to look to for potential furloughs would be custodians, teaching assistants, lunch aides, administrative staff, secretaries. Again, the specifics haven't been discussed at this point, but in the event that that becomes necessary, we are starting some of our custodial work that's done in the summer now while the buildings are empty, and we are taking every precaution to ensure social distancing and their safety. In terms of the welfare of these employees, they will actually come out even or ahead financially due to the additional $600 weekly unemployment compensation benefit that's in place during COVID-19. Anyone who makes $74,600 or less comes out even or ahead. So their financial health should not be impacted if we were to choose to move to a furlough. The Clinton Township's unemployment compensation is self-funded. So while some financial relief would be realized, it wouldn't be as significant as it may sound by moving all of their payroll costs. There is some talk about possible assistance with that, but again, that's unclear and undetermined at this point since the bill is still moving through the process. Currently, it's only proposed, and to my knowledge, it has not yet been presented to either of the houses, and the benefits would have to be maintained within the bill as it is currently written. And again, it's changing very quickly, so there's more to come on this if it even moves forward to a vote. The New Jersey Family First Act is in place for COVID-19, and it allows for employees to receive paid time off beyond normal FMLA, which is the leave that's provided by the federal government for COVID-related issues. It requires companies and public employees to be paid $200 or 2/3 of their salary, whichever is greater. They're entitled to this if schools or childcare that their children would attend are closed due to the state order, if a family member needs care due to COVID-19, or obviously if they themselves become ill. And then if we do have teachers who are out, we would then incur the cost of a substitute. So if we were to return to school, attending school, this could come into play, as well as for anyone who is required to work on site to get the schools ready for opening. So these are potential additional costs that we have to be prepared to pay should the need arise. So basically, we need to hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. And present legislation, executive orders, and proposals are being presented and changed at a very fast pace, both at the state and federal levels. I'm sure most of you know that Governor Murphy does a daily presentation, and every day there's just a little something new. Conservative spending through the end of the school year is necessary so we can keep the district on a strong financial footing. And we need to closely monitor any spending requests, staffing decisions, work timelines, and our cash flows, our cash on hand, to make sure that we are still on strong financial footing and prepared regardless of how all of this turns out as things move forward. Does anyone have any questions about that on the board?
Do you have a high level bottom line range of what the financial impact could be? I mean, qualitatively, that was quite informative. Thank you.
I do not.
Okay.
We haven't had any discussions. It's also very new that other than conservative spending at this point, we don't really have any idea of which way the district would want to go, or even if there are opportunities to furlough, we have to really analyze a lot of different moving parts before a decision like that could be made. So I really don't know.
Okay, thank you.
Any Anything else? Should I move to the budget presentation? Okay, and Dr. Cohn, of course, please feel free to chime in at any point. This is the presentation for the 2021 budget. So here are some school highlights that were considered as the budget was being developed: maintaining small class sizes, growing special education population, investments in PD for teacher growth, continued facility improvement, focusing on school branding, which is one of the school's goals, increased awareness of school safety, Chromebooks in all classrooms, and a focus on STEAM instruction. The 4 goal areas of the strategic plan were also considered. The areas are teaching and learning, which is to create an educational environment where all individuals are inspired to reach beyond their potential. Goal area number 2 is social emotional learning, to create an environment and culture where all stakeholders recognize the value of social and emotional health and cultivate an emotionally balanced community. Goal area number 3, communication, partnership, engagement, to establish the mechanisms that would increase active involvement of community and schools so that a culture of collaboration and partnership is achieved. And goal area number 4, health and wellness, to develop an emotionally healthy, safe, and secure environment and physical and mental wellness that fosters educational growth throughout the Clinton Township School District. So a few items for fiscal efficiency that the district does currently use and shall continue to use. We have E-rate participation, which allows us to realize reduced costs related to technology upgrades and purchases. We also have school choice, which we're phasing out, but we are still receiving state aid for school choice, preschool tuition, and Lebanon Borough tuition as additional revenues beyond local tax levies and state funds. We're a member of ACES, which is an energy reduction consortium, and we focus on internal controls and procedures for financial and operational improvement. Our budgeting goals were to provide accurate information to the community regarding the budget process, maintain existing programs, and to continue to provide a rigorous academic program for students, to adjust appropriations through zero-based budgeting to accommodate growing special needs populations, and to keep our local property taxes under control. So program changes, as Dr. Cohn shared earlier, staff additions, the majority of which are for additions in the area of special education, as well as a second grade teacher and a secretary at Spruce Run. And the reduction in custodial staff, however, no one will be reduced in force. It will be due to attrition as we have retirements and other issues for people leaving on their own.
Excuse me, Ms. Morris, I'm sorry to interrupt. Brian, can the people who are observing see this presentation, or is it only the panel of people?
Everyone can see this presentation.
Okay, thank you.
So the budget summary. The total general fund budget is $27,202,006. Of that, $24,238,006 comes from the local tax levy. The total special revenue, which is primarily federal funds, title money, and IDEA money for special education, we're expecting $568,654. And then our debt service, which is set, established from when we took out the bonds, is $2,108,081, all of which is paid through the local tax levy. So the total budget is $29,878,741, $346,982 of which comes from the local tax levy. The 2020-21 budget does go to state cap of 2% and utilizes bank cap for a total tax levy increase of 3%. The revenue summary is based on the source of the funds. So local funds will be our tax levy increase, which uses $276,737 in banked cap, and we will talk a little bit more about bank cap later in the presentation. Lebanon Borough tuition and preschool tuition. Our state funds are for special education categorical aid, which is expected to go up based on our current award by $36,928. School choice aid decreased from 2019 by $166,455, and that's due to our transitioning out of the school choice program. Extraordinary aid is anticipated but unknown. We did budget a conservative $100,000 to help the budget balance. There's a one-time grant this year called the Securing Our Children's Future Grant, and we're expecting an award of $65,255 that has to be used for a security project. And overall revenue from state sources is net negative by $64,272 due to the transition from the choice program. Our federal funds, Titles 1, 2, and 3, IDEA Basic and IDEA Preschool, is budgeted at 85% of the 2020 actual numbers. And this is done because we don't get these awards until after the budgets are complete. So we need to budget conservatively. However, the hope is that we will get the same amounts or better than we received this year. We also have reserve funds included in the budget with $313,655 for capital projects and $185,000 budgeted from maintenance reserve to help fulfill the budget revenue deficit, which has been the practice of the district for a few years at this point. Here's a pie chart of the revenue breakdown where you can see the majority is our local tax, 88.7%. And then we have our federal funds. State aid is our next largest at 7.4%, and then tuition. Just a note about school choice. The district opted out of school choice in 2018. So this revenue will continue to decline as we phase out of our current students. Here's a chart just to give you an idea of how the state aid is being received and a comparison from the current year to the projected year, with the red being the current year and the 21 being what's in this budget. So you can see the only significant decline is in choice. And the reason for the decline, again, is as our 8th graders leave, we won't be replacing them. So we have fewer students for whom we're being funded. We also had an underreport by one student in our application for state student aid, and we were overpaid in fiscal year 20, the current year, by 5 students. So we have that difference taken out of our allotment, which leads us to our current award. This chart just gives you a visual of the state aid and the tax levy. As you can see, both have remained relatively flat across 10 years. Revenues have not remained flat, but the expenditures have not remained flat, but our revenues have. So just as an expenditure summary, right sizing of special education staff due to an increase in enrollment will increase salaries and benefits. Oops, I'm sorry about that. All current academic, athletic, and extracurricular offerings will continue to be funded by this budget. Well-funded academic, technology, and professional development budgets are included to maintain high levels of student achievement in all areas. And this is just a note about settlements that are anticipated. although the first is officially settled, so that's good news. But the teachers have been working off of long expired contracts since June 2017's agreement. So the estimated possible increases across multiple years impact salary and benefit costs significantly. We also have administrators who are on a one-year expired contract as of June 2019. They are still in negotiation, so the impacts as of right now are unknown. But we do need to have increases on their lines to be prepared for any settlement that may result. Our reserve funds and how they'll be used, the capital reserve, we will be using those funds within the budget for security camera upgrades at all schools. We'll also be using that one-time security money that I mentioned earlier of $65,000 toward that project. We also are going to be updating all of the parking lot lights, making sure they're all fully operational and with LED lights to save, hopefully, on some energy costs. There will be some carpeting removal and replacement with tile floors at RV within the office suite and one classroom. And we'll be adding water softener systems at the 3 schools that with which we have cafeterias that are operational, and that's necessary to lengthen the life of our very expensive appliances and reduce the cost of repairs due to calcium buildups and various problems with the water. Our maintenance reserve, we have $187,000 budgeted to fill the revenue deficit, as has been the practice since 2017. And our fund balance is currently at 2.5% of budget, which is the recommendation by the state. And we are not budgeting to use any fund balance for spending in 2021. Here is a listing of the general fund expenditures. Regular instruction at $7.1 million is the greatest expense, and that's direct any costs related to direct instruction of our regular education students. The next highest is our benefits at just under $6 million. And then we have almost $3.1 million for direct education for special education instruction. Our child study team and related services, which would be like OT, PT, speech, behavioral services, those are at $2.7 million. And then we have buildings and grounds as another high ticket item, just over $2 million. I do also want to just point out that the out-of-district tuition is $683,000. In an earlier presentation, an error was made at a much higher number. So I do just want to point that out for clarification that this is the correct number.
Ms. Moore, will you be sharing a comparison between the general fund expenditures for the budget and the previous year?
Not in this presentation, but in the board book, it gives you the comparison over 3 years.
And but the board book is not a public document, is it?
It is not. So no, it is not in here. Here's a general fund expenditure visual. And this is just a visual of the numbers that I just discussed. Here are some budget line comparisons. So Ms. Brooks, to answer your question, not every line, but here are some of the key lines that we do have a comparison. So in curriculum and instruction, you can see over 3 years that the budget requests have really not fluctuated up or down significantly in either direction.
But there was a request for a 10% decrease on this curriculum and instruction thing, so this was not full needs attained. This was take 10% out of that, and so hence the number 262,200.
Okay, the technology line has increased a bit across the 3 years. And professional development based on the needs of the district has gone up from last year, but last year was a little less than the year prior. So this is a chart actually from Dr. Brasher. Thank you very much for sharing this. I thought it was worth sharing in the presentation. And these are changes from the current year to next year. So if you look at the gray bars, it gives you the total budgets, the total budget numbers from 2019-20 to 2021. And then it gives you increased numbers in blue and decreased numbers in orange. So it can help you see which areas had significant increases. Just a nice another option for a visual.
So Ms. Morris, you said Ms. Brasher helped you with this?
Ms. Brasher shared this particular chart, and she and I discussed it a bit and thought it was worth sharing, yes.
So other board members haven't had a chance to see the presentation and share anything with you, right? I just want to make sure that's the case. Or just curious if there was other input that you had received from board members.
No, and this actually is a result of analysis from the budget book. She did not have an opportunity to see this presentation either.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. So here's the screen. I said we'd get back to discussion a little bit more on banked cap. So there's often confusion with what banked cap really is because of the word bank. People tend to think it's money that's sitting in an account somewhere, and that's not the case. Banked cap is the ability to tax that was not taken in prior years, but remains available to school districts to take as tax increase beyond the 2% for the next 3 subsequent years. So at some point in the past 3 years, the district opted not to go to 2%. There may have been adjustments for healthcare or enrollment that were not taken, and that ability to tax is carried over. So in this chart, you can see the base for fiscal year 20 remains the same all the way down the column. It gives you the percents at 1%, 1.5%, and 2%. It also shows then the expiring banked cap. So the 276,737 is an ability to tax that amount additional to 2%. And if we don't take it this year, then we will lose the opportunity to take it. So we did have budget deficits, and this amount is included in the budget. So with the 2% plus the banked cap, we're at 3.2%, or the total tax levy of $24,238,903. The amount of banked cap that's actually available to us is $853,377, and we are not electing, obviously, to go to that extent, but some of that will be available next year and the year after that as well, since different portions roll from year to year and fall off after the 3 years are up.
Ms. Morris, what was the biggest cause of the deficit, like your biggest expense that caused this deficit of that you needed the 276,737?
The biggest increase in expenses was related to the special education population growth.
Not salary?
I'm sorry?
Which is larger expenditure, salary or special education costs?
I don't know the answer to that without looking at the exact numbers. And here's the tax impact. So the ratables are the numbers that we get from the county sites. We do not have eligibility for an enrollment adjustment. We do have the 2% tax levy increase. We had a reduction in health care, so we don't have eligibility for health care adjustment. The banked cap dollars are here. So just to make sure everyone understands that this is not, these are all in aggregate. So with the first option is only considering it would be a no increase. So basically a flat tax. The next is with the 2%. And then the blue at the bottom is including the 2% and the banked cap. So this number here in the bottom right corner, those numbers are in total. It's not adding the two together. So the average home will see an annual increase with this percentage of approximately $144, which translates to approximately $12 per month. And that's based on the average assessed home per the State Department of Community Affairs of $394,632.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
So I have a question about the enrollment adjustment and how that works. So last year, when we budgeted, we projected a 5% decrease in enrollment year over year. We actually didn't see that 5% decrease in enrollment. And so, we had flat and got 2 more, which is great news, Dr. Cohn. We actually have, 5% more students in the district this year, and that we're projecting again to have next year than we had when we built the budget for last year. So I'm curious how the enrollment adjustment works and at what sort of threshold that comes into play.
Sure. So the enrollment adjustment is based on the data that's submitted through the ASSA in October. It's called the snapshot date of October 15th of every year. And the enrollment numbers in the snapshot determine if we've had growth or not. And while I don't know the exact threshold number, if you have significant enrollment increase, not 1 or 2 students, then you can receive an adjustment where they give you extra funds or the ability to tax extra in order to accommodate the growth in your enrollment. So we have not seen significant enrollment change, which is why we don't have an enrollment adjustment available to us. I don't do those calculations myself. We use the budget software, which has a lot of complex formulas going on from screen to screen. And when the ASSA information is downloaded into the system, it automatically calculates what the enrollment adjustment might be for a district. And this year we were not entitled to one. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
So, Ms. Morris, I have questions on this slide. Did you call the township? I know we had talked about this in 2 other meetings. Did you call the township and get the current rateable number?
These are the current ratables. They come out once per year, and they will not change. I also found out, I learned from the township that any changes to the tax levy for households the 3rd quarter of this year is when the houses will see the impact of any increase or decrease, as the case may be.
See, I was able to obtain the Clinton Township rateable. The most current one is 2149909 So it's different than what we have. So there is another rateable number that the township does carry. I don't know how much it impacts these figures, but it's not the one I think at this point in time we should be using, to calculate. Also, the average home in Clinton Township right now is $396,696.64, so slightly different than what you have indicated on this particular slide as well. You had also mentioned, I think it was at the last meeting, that they were going to do a mass, new evaluation of everyone's home. Is that correct?
I did not say that. No, I'm not aware of that happening.
Okay. Well, just for the record, I could have sworn I heard it at the last meeting. They were going to do a mass one, but they do 49% of their inventory every year, so it's pretty current that the average assessed value of the homes are accurate, the ones that they provide. Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry. Your source was what was your source?
The township.
Okay, so mine are from the county and then the state, so comparable but not exactly specific.
Right, and that's why, I just think from experience being on the board, knowing that those numbers on the county site or not is why I recommended just giving the township a call.
Right, well, and I did do that. I did call them. Okay, so here's just another screen with the average home. the assessed value. 2% plus bank cap would have an increase of $751,659 in our budget. And again, here is just the impact on the average home in Clinton Township. And if anyone does have any questions or would like more information, this is more for the public, obviously, you're welcome to contact me. Normally, we have hours where you could come in and take a look at the budget, but because of the closure, if you reach out to me, I'm happy to work something out with you, or we could perhaps Zoom and put it on the screen and I can answer your questions and you can review it in that manner. We'll have to be a little creative, but anyone who would like to speak to me or take a look is certainly welcome to reach out, and I'll be happy to make accommodations for you.
Thank you. So we're going to open the floor to the board members for questions, and then we will move to a public comment section on the budget only.
So I have quite a few comments to make. I know that one of the slides said that our state aid was relatively flat. I'm not sure that I agree with that statement. It was relatively flat in 16, 17, and 18. But in 18, 19, I think it was down 302,694. In August of 19, we lost another $23,000 or $24,000. And then we just lost somewhere between roughly another $130,000. And, I just think a lot of this is based on enrollment. And now with the pandemic, I fear that we are going to lose a considerable amount more than that. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. I have some general comments about the proposed 2020-21 budget. And honestly, I have to say that after being a member of the community for over 25 years, I found this budget to be relatively confusing versus the one that we've had in the past. It lacked in-depth explanation of things and clarity and comparisons from year to year. I've asked questions as a member of this board regarding this particular budget and negotiations over the last few months, either in executive session or public session or via phone. And I pretty much haven't received most answers to questions that I've asked. I was asking for a breakdown of salary in our budget and benefits by employee to gain an understanding of positions and negotiations, positions, to understand the positions the negotiation team wanted to take. I didn't get any of that. I wanted to gain an understanding of the financial impact on the current budget and future and financial stability of the district, and really didn't get a clear understanding there. And recently, I sent an email to the board president to ask her when I would be receiving answers to my questions, since the budget hearing was about a week away, and the final components of the negotiations process was coming to a close. Almost 7 days later, I received answers to some questions, but not many. When I was asked when I would receive the answers to my questions, I was told I at least got some of them. To begin, here are some of the questions that I asked and the answers that I got, and I just wanted to share it with everybody. My first question was, what are the 4 largest categories of expenses in the 2020-21 budget? And I was referred to see page 19 in our budget booklet. So I went to page 19 in our budget booklet, and it wasn't the first time I had reviewed page 19. But this chart, for me, is incomplete. In past budget presentations and in Facilities and Finance Committee meetings, what's missing from this chart and the overall presentation is what percentage of and total is the salary for this particular budget, right? What percentage of our entire budget includes salary, benefits, supplies, professional services, and other expenditures that you've outlined in that one particular chart. The way the chart is done now, it hides the larger categories of expenses such as salary and benefits. And without having some answers provided regarding that, you really couldn't figure out the impact of the negotiated deal. Supplies are very important to me, specifically those that are related to the classroom and slated for the children. And I don't have a good sense of where we were last year with supplies versus, versus this year. So I'm a bit concerned with that. In the past, information was readily available to us in this regard. I think it's the responsibility of the business office to provide a roadmap that depicts how budgets look and compare to one another. And this is similar to what's done on an annual basis each time the state changes the standardized testing platform. So Ms. Hinkle and Ms. Cohen have always done a great job of saying, okay, this is how our students performed in New Jersey Ask. And then we switch to the park, and it tries to carry some sort of relationship, although it's not an apples to apples comparison. At least there was some sort of way to walk us through in a map of how our performance was. In the private sector, there's a 10K that companies are required to complete for the SEC, and it ensures transparency and adequate disclosures to investors. And in the district's case, the taxpayer is the investor. So, to be able to take them and said, these are our big expenditures from last year, this is how they've stayed the same, increased or decreased. I think it's really important for board members to understand, to get a good reading on the budget, and really something important that probably many members of our community are used to seeing. So again, I think the way this was presented in this one chart, as well as the pie chart, sort of hides a larger portion of our expenditures. And in the future, I hope that we can include that in future budgets. The second question I asked was, what are the 4 largest categories of expenses that were reduced in the 2021 budget? I've never gotten an answer on this one, but I know we've had it answered and provided in presentations before. And for example, the 2018-19 budget, hearing the budget area anticipated cost decrease and the percentage increase were provided to board members. Now, some people might say that, this hasn't been provided every budget season, so why do we have to provide it? And I just think, again, it just being transparent and letting people know where reductions were, even though it's a zero-based budget, you still have expenditures in the same categories. And I think it's important for everybody to know what's less or more in this particular budget. The third question that I asked is, what is the increase in the cost in dollars and percentage increase of healthcare costs in 2020 and 21, and compare it to this year, and please put it in categories of medical, dental, and prescription. I got the following response. The budget includes a decrease in fiscal year 20 of $2,100. This figure is based on a change in the base benefit plan offered by the district, an effective date of January 1 for the changes, the contribution structure from the MOA, a 4% increase in dental coverage, and a 2% increase in RX coverage. Well, this didn't answer my question, because I asked specifically for cost in dollars and percentage increase or decreases in healthcare costs for 2 specific years. And I asked to see what it was in medical, dental, and prescription. Again, something that had been provided to board members in the past. And a year-to-year comparison wasn't completed either, and I'm not sure why. The fourth question that I asked was answered, and that was, what capital and maintenance projects are being put on hold, if any, for 2020? So thank you very much for that answer. Question 5 was, what is our supply budget for 2020-21? And please compare it to last year's total amount. This question was not answered. Some people may say, well, we've scattered that category over multiple line items, and every business administrator does it differently. However, this is something that's a relatively important category, and one that we've seen every year as a board. And I really think that we should be able to pull that up without an issue. The sixth question that I asked was, why did the district cost of liability insurance decrease? Because I noticed in the budget booklet, 11-000-262-520, there was a decrease of 33%, or $41,000 in liability insurance. So this concerned me, particularly under the current healthcare crisis today. The answer I got was there's no reduction in the budget for insurance, and it didn't say reduction in liability. It just said general insurance, rather than an aggregate increase of 9.9 included in the estimate from NJSIG. Our insurance includes many different types of coverage. Each line item is allocated to the appropriate account. But again, this didn't answer my specific question, which was about liability insurance. And I will say that our former chair of our Facilities and Finance Committee for many, many years, Mr. Malloy, he's an expert in insurance. And when the board was evaluating insurance, and that was presented to our committee, Mr. Malloy, based on his expertise, specifically recommended that the district look at increasing its liability insurance dramatically. Now, the board can't do that itself, and board can't make anybody do that. But I don't know if that has happened, and that could have just been lost in translation from one BA to another. If anyone's familiar with government entities, you know that the liability insurance is up in the government entities, up 20 to 25% for the years 2021 and 2020 and 2021. So the fact that it's only going up 9% is a little concerning to me. But again, no specific answer on liability insurance at all. The seventh question I asked was, what percentage of the budget salary and benefits? This question was not answered. What was cut from the budget? I was told that it's a zero-based budget, which included items on the initial building department's budgets that were considered wish list items, such as furniture and additional staff. Items deemed essential were cut out, and other areas such as supplies were reduced by 10%. Actuals from 2019-20 were considered as well as administrative input before cuts were made. Well, this concerns me that there were cuts made, right? And we don't necessarily know what those cuts were. So was it classroom supplies to students? Was it staff? Again, these are things that we've been told, and for some reason, we can't get that information. I asked if I could see a most recent copy of our LFRP, which is Long Range Facilities Plan, and I appreciate getting that from Dr. Cohn, so thank you. I asked how much money will be placed in surplus, because you always want to try to have at least $650,000 in your surplus. And I think under the current situation with the healthcare crisis, plus a lot of other things I'll talk about in a few minutes, I think it's important for us to have that as a safety net and a contingency for a lot of things that could particularly happen. But that wasn't answered as well. I asked if we could compare the professional development budget this year versus previous years. And all I got was, based on Joanne's Hinkle budget request, there's an increase in budget expenditures from fiscal year 20 of $1,200. The answer says increase in budgeted expenditures. Well, the tough part with this answer from the business office is that I see is different in the budget booklet, okay? And it's different in regard, and it's different than the presentation that was provided by curriculum instruction in the technology department. So, for example, page 21 of the budget booklet from the business office said that curriculum and instruction was reduced by $10,000, and page 23 of that same booklet said professional development was increased, right? And so our out-of-district professional development was increased by $6,000, and in-district was $23,000. Tuition reimbursement went from $51,000, which is really an annual average that I'm aware of being on the board, to $80,000. This is an increase of $30,000, and I'm not really sure why that increased. So I have questions about that. And then, remarkably, in this particular booklet, it says that reimbursement was increased for staff as requested. Well, I've asked who requested it and why, and I haven't received that information. Now, when I look at Ms. Hinkle's presentation, What's also interesting is that there's a decrease in instructional supplies and curriculum and instruction of about $4,000. Curriculum chairs receive a raise of $4,000, and purchase services decreased by 10. So I didn't see that in the budget booklet, and so there's conflicting numbers that to me aren't matching up, and I have a concern. I also heard that there was a reduction in nursing supplies, and I saw that in the budget booklet. So I asked what was cut or eliminated just for my reference. I had heard a prior conversation of some things that were potentially going to be cut, and it was a little alarming to me. So when you look at 11-000-213-610, in the booklet we were given, there was a decrease in nursing supplies of $4,975, or a 33.2% decrease. So the answer I received was there are no significant reductions in the budget. School budgeting is a zero-based process, so each line item requires itemization and justification. You know, I just want to know what was cut, because if there's nothing been cut, then nothing's been cut. I still don't have the answer for that. The 13th question I asked was, why is there a reduction in professional services, and where are those reductions coming from? It said C, question number 12, which again doesn't provide me any specifics to to the question I answered. And would like to bring attention to 11-000-217-320 of a decrease of $364,850, which is a 90% decrease. Also, engineering services were decreased too, and just trying to find out why. And if they were placed someplace else, that's fine, but I'd just like to know. I asked another question of how much money has the supplies budget decreased, and what's been cut. And you know, it's a 10% in supplies. Was this in the classroom? Was it supplies to the staff? Because our staff needs supplies, right, in order to educate our children, and our students need supplies too. So where did the 10% cut come from? So those were the questions that I asked, and I really don't feel comfortable that I've been properly given answers to that, which I'm pretty disappointed at. I want to make sure, after evaluating all the information, comparisons between presentations and the budget booklet, that I have the numbers correct. So if I'm looking at this correctly, the budget book tax levy says $26,346,982. The presentation matches that number, but when I look at the user-friendly budget, it said $24,572,142. So I'm probably looking in the wrong space, but Ms. Morris, can you please tell me if the user-friendly budget tax levy matches the what's in the book?
The user-friendly budget has the number that's in the presentation. The tax levy is $26,346,982 in this current budget.
Okay, and would you be able, when we're done with this meeting tonight or tomorrow, just send me what page that is on so that I could locate it?
Sure.
Thank you so much. The other question I have, my math's not so great at times. Did our budget increase 3% or 3.1%?
$3.2%.
So it increased 3.2%. Okay, thank you very much. Yikes, that's a lot. Let's see. Increased purchase professional services. Ms. Morris, can you tell me there's a reduction in board member fees of $826. What is that reduction for?
I don't have the entire budget and all of the notes outlined here in front of me currently, so I'm really not prepared to answer individual line items. That was something that we should have done when we looked at the board book, and everything was right there and presented. So, I mean, it's up to the board president. Do you want me to take the time to get all of that and answer each of these line items, or would you like me to answer her questions offline at another point in time?
I have a question for, I guess, Vito. As board members, are we should we be doing line by line? Essentially, are we doing an overview of what, like my understanding of a board member is not to get down into the line by line type. We see it, but we're not necessarily to sit here to say that. Can you please clarify for me about how extensive we need to go?
There's no legal restriction on the questions a board member can ask about the budget. There may be some questions that can't be answered publicly for certain obvious reasons as it relates to personnel or students. But I'm hard pressed to identify a legal restriction on a board member's ability to ask questions. Certainly you as the chair control the meeting in terms of how long questions are going to go on and when to call a vote. But in terms of legal restrictions on the questions themselves, I'm not aware of any.
Okay, so there's not, again,
Well, in terms of our bylaws, we have signed ethical oaths to see that the schools are administered well, but not to administer the schools ourselves. And so that is a vague charge, but it does seem like a line-by-line review gets quickly into administering the schools ourselves.
Well, I think if that were the case, Mr. Gagliardi would have warned me that I was going too deep. And since that hasn't happened, what I'll do, since it's making everyone uncomfortable, I just have a couple final comments. And then if there's anybody else that has questions, of course, they can go through that. So
can I just, as process guardian, I just need to respond to that, which is Mr. Gagliardi said legally, but not all of our bylaws are grounded in statute. Okay, right. So our bylaws are what govern our meeting, and our bylaws include the charge that we see that the schools are well administered, not that we administer them ourselves. So I just want to clarify that he answered a different question.
Can I ask then if you see it as within our charge as making sure that the schools are being administered well, that if we see errors in the mathematics in the budget, that we are within our rights to call into question the validity of the budget as a whole? I'm not a genius, but I can add 2 and 2, and I've found places in the budget where the numbers simply do not add up. And I am uncomfortable with that as a custodian of the funding that we're responsible for administering. And I think that we should have the right to question that publicly, since it's obvious that the questions asked privately are not going to be answered to the fullest extent.
I think you are, as far as the process goes, entitled to ask questions about the overview of the budget. And if that includes whether you find it credible or not, I think that's fine. But we were starting to get into a line-by-line item question, and that's, at least in my opinion, where things maybe have crossed over.
Well, I have certainly not gone into line by line. It was just
you just asked about a line.
Absolutely, I did, but it was a significant one. And if it makes people uncomfortable, I'll just stop and then I'll just finish with some general comments. So, in my opinion, we have a very talented staff here in Clinton Township that comprise the Clinton Township Education Association, and they include maintenance workers, custodians, secretaries, teaching assistants, and teachers. I have always had the highest level of respect for each of them, and I have always respected their dedication to the service they provide the children of Clinton Township. I believe that our teachers deserve high increases and to be paid for a very fair wage. I fully support that. But there is a distinct difference between deserve and afford. And in the past, prior members of the Board of Education tried to be creative in developing a mutually beneficial contract for both the members of the CTA and the taxpayers, with the ultimate goal of being able to provide the best educational experience for the children of Clinton Township, a fair wage, and benefits for all members of our staff, all while being responsible with taxpayers' money. After reviewing and studying the proposed 2020-21 budget and the tentative, or what was until a few moments ago, the tentative agreement of the teacher's contract, I can honestly say that there isn't much, if anything, new for all students that attend the Clinton Township School District. The budget is increased 3.2% without offering new programs that support the academic experience for our children, their social and emotional growth of all the children in Clinton Township. The superintendent of schools cannot be blamed for the lack of initiatives and programs that support our children and the newly developed strategic plan. She's been handcuffed with a contract agreement made between the board's negotiation team and the teachers' union. The tentative agreement provided percentage increases without obtaining concessions in healthcare that would strengthen the district's financial stability, enhance the educational experience of our children, and meet the needs of our teachers. The result of the proposed contract is a flat budget, not from a financial perspective, but from an academic, social, and emotional program perspective to support the children of Clinton Township. There were always ways to come to a mutually beneficial agreement between the board and the union. However, the union dug their heels in and waited until they owned the board to get what they wanted. The new board's negotiation committee acquiesced without negotiating. Negotiations is a give and take, but when one party digs their heels in, decides to manipulate the process, the system, the people, and the community for their own financial benefit, then the children are left behind, and so is the taxpayer. The board's negotiation committee didn't negotiate. They simply sat down with the union's negotiation team and said, "What do you want?" Many terms of the agreement were already signed on prior to seating of the negotiation committee, and the only real remaining big issues were salary and benefits. But the new board's negotiation team relented and reversed those agreements and gave the teachers what they wanted, as a result, left the kids behind.
Mrs. Grant, as process guardian, you are not supposed to attack board members personally, and you have crossed the line into attacking members of the negotiating committee without cause, because as you well know, you are not part of those meetings. So I ask that you withdraw those statements attacking your fellow board members, because there is no basis to them.
They're not attacks, Kathy. It is just basic fundamental facts.
They aren't facts. You're saying things that are not true, Maria.
Excuse me. I have the floor this time, and when I'm done, you guys can say what you need to say.
But you are actually attacking the members by saying that we did not negotiate in good faith, that we were not negotiating on behalf of the board. And you have absolutely no basis to say that. You just saw in executive session the financial calculations of what the agreement was, and you have no basis for saying that we were out of line with what the previous committee would do.
Well, that is your opinion. So based on the numbers.
And it's also our bylaw to not attack members. You're saying members are owned by a union is attacking members.
Not attacking members. If I was attacking members, it would be individual, and it was really just processes.
It was all new members and the new negotiation committee.
Okay. So since the motto in our school district is where children come first, I have a series of questions for the board president. Please tell me how a budget that does not include new programs that support the district's strategic plan adheres to putting children first. Ms. Brooks?
Can you tell me how taking away approximately $515,000 in special education money from the state's category of extraordinary aid from children with special needs and giving it to teachers for their retroactive pay when retroactive pay was already in the budget to cover adheres to putting children first? And can you tell me how you can take money from children with special needs in the form of extraordinary aid and give it to the teachers when our district saw a significant increase in the number of children with special needs, how that adheres to putting children first?
Can you tell me how the use of one-time revenue source from state extraordinary aid can be used to fund retro salary for the teachers? Please tell me how this can be sustained next year as it is a one-time revenue source of money, and how this move adheres to putting children first. Can you tell me how you raise the per pupil cost $1,000 in this proposed budget when the district enrollment is declining and the budget lacks new programs supporting all of our children? How does that adhere to putting children first when supply costs have been decreased and much of that increase is in salary and benefits? And can you tell me how reducing teacher premium contributions to healthcare insurance without a meaningful transition to healthcare, another healthcare plan, puts the district in a better financial position, which adheres to putting children first? And can you tell me how providing retro pay to members of our staff who were non-renewed for poor performance adheres to putting children first?
Can you tell me how not negotiating and achieving one parent-teacher night conference for single-parent families or families like my own where both parents work throughout the entire duration of their children's schooling adheres to putting children first? Can you tell me how taking approximately $18,000 in transportation cost that were earmarked for children with special needs and giving it to the teachers adheres to putting children first?
How does cutting a makerspace designed for the enhancement of our children's learning experience from the budget when the cost is only $11,000? How does that adhere to putting children first? This is how tight our budget is. How is eliminating or ignoring the need for more counselors in the district to support the emotional needs of our children adhere to putting children first?
As a former head of the Curriculum and Instruction Committee, I'd like to understand how we can support a decrease in curriculum instruction of $10,000 over this size of a budget. How does that put children first?
Can you tell me how the board doesn't secure healthcare concessions that would put the district in a better financial position? How does that adhere to children first? Can you please help me understand why the board's leadership and members, hold on one second. So what will happen if more state aid is lost? What will happen? What will you do if the township cannot pay us money, which is already happening? What happens if 25 more children with special needs move into our district this summer? Where will the money come from? Because our budget is that tight. What will you do if wastewater treatment plant stops working at Patrick McGarren in Round Valley School? There's no room for contingencies in this budget or any of that. Is that how we put children first? Please help me understand how a union utilizes services of a teacher in Bedminster, paid for her services, whose sole purpose is to create discord, reduce trust in our school board and its members by spreading untruths and lies about its governance, procedures, policies, and personally attack individual members of the board representing our community, to create sympathy and support of parents so that they will support the teachers at the voting booth for their own financial benefit without remorse, with the sole purpose of getting their own candidates on the board for their financial benefit. Achieving that goal at all costs that include attacking the integrity of the district, the superintendent, individual board members, reputation, integrity, and the district. Please help me understand how that adheres to putting children first. Then that same individual continues to attend other local teacher union meetings to spread her methodology, boasting how successful it was in Clinton Township, what her motivation was and the outcomes, in hopes that they'll engage in her behavior so that they too can own the majority position of other school boards for their financial benefits. Happily, it's been reported to me that she has been abruptly rejected by many unions with their response, "That's not how we operate. That's not who we are." How does a union endorse and participate in these types of actions and utilize this type of person? How does that adhere to putting children first? How can members of this board of education not be told by board leadership that an MOA was agreed to on March 4th? And how can members of the board find out a week later, or a member of the board find out a week later, that both parties had reached a tentative agreement by a community member via phone? And how can an MOA and the details of a new deal not be shared with the full board until this evening at 7 p.m., 6 or 7 weeks after the agreement was signed? How can anyone outside the negotiations committee have time and the wherewithal to comprise and ask questions and digest the impact of the deal on the children and how it intertwines with the budget. How does that put children first? Now, maybe one or two of these actions listed above would not be detrimental to children, but the aggregate, the total, frightens me. The long-term impact of this deal is reflected in this budget in our community. Ms. Brooks?
At this point, I wanted to raise those math problems that I mentioned earlier. I'm going to start with an item on page 15 in the category of general supplies. We have a decrease in the proposed 2021 budget to $13,000 from $100,000 last year. And I'm curious where the other $87,000 went. So that was my first question. But the bigger one is actually in the budget itself, is a series of numbers that were added on page 15 of the budget. There is a line, total undistributed expenditures required maintenance for school facilities. The amount for this year is listed as, hang on a second, I think I have the wrong page here. There's so many little marks in my budget here that I'm having difficulty finding the right one. Okay, sorry, it was on page 13 as the total extracurricular instruction amounts for the year. The proposed budget, the amount is $117,551, notable for being significantly decreased over the previous two columns. However, the number is made up by adding two previous totals, the line of total school-sponsored and extracurricular activities and the total school-sponsored athletics and instruction. If you add up those two line items in the last column, you do get $117,551. But if you add up those same numbers in the previous two columns, you do not get the numbers $540,921 and $706,945. Instead, you get seriously smaller numbers, $107,300 and $133,906. So I see a missing amount of somewhere in the neighborhood of $400,000 to $500,000 turning up here, and I would like to know what the impact is on the budget. I have several other examples I can share with you if you like offline.
And so I just wanted to present my concerns that this budget is exceptionally tight with no contingencies. And even before the pandemic, there really wasn't any room for contingencies here. So I'm exceptionally concerned with the fact that my questions hadn't been answered, that key components of this budget seem to be, hidden behind other things. And we don't have a real good sense of the key components of this budget. Thank you.
Can I just say that I take exception to the use of the words hidden, to the implication that the new board members are somehow bought. Personally, I am extremely offended by that. Your idea that this is where our students put first in this budget, if our teachers do not feel that they are honored, that they are paid according to their expertise and their time and their effort and their energy and their love, which all of us as parents have seen over the past couple of weeks, looking at what our kids are getting on this end of it. If we can't acknowledge that they are putting all of that in, we need to pay them according to what they are putting in. And for you saying, where is that in the budget? That's where it is. We are finally paying them what they deserve. And yes, I know of what I speak because I am a teacher. And that does not mean that I am bought. That means that I can see the full picture. And I understand what it means to put your blood, sweat, and tears into your students. I understand what it means to be on both sides of this. And the fact that we have not been paying our teachers what they are worth, that we have not been honoring them. I'm surprised, frankly, that they have even stuck around this long. And that amazes me that we have not lost more of our teachers than we already have. And so if we didn't start paying them according to what they're worth, and we are not paying them extraordinary amounts.
Jennifer Kaltenbach.
Yes?
I'm sorry, I was being asked who was speaking.
I can't believe that it's even a question, because that is where we are finding students. And yes, cuts have had to be made, but I feel like you are directing your ire at a party that didn't make the cut. And I think that a lot of your comments could have been made earlier. And you keep saying you didn't get answers, but I got answers to most of your questions just from listening to other conversations that were had at either executive session or public meetings or our committee meetings, our committee of the whole. So you keep saying you didn't get answers. You might not have gotten direct answers, but you were given the information. And I just find it kind of frustrating that you are wasting the public's time at this point, asking questions and quite frankly grandstanding, when we really could be having maybe a better discussion on this budget.
So I'd like to step in as process guardian and have everyone take a couple of deep breaths. And if we can, on all sides, stick to questions about the budget and factual statements, I think it would be in the best interest of the board and for the public that we sort of, take that tone down just a little bit. I have a couple of questions, so if I may, I'd like to just ask these questions. Mrs. Morris, how many presentations have there been on the budget for this board thus far? Ms. Morris, you're muted if you're trying to answer. Dr. Cohn, can you answer that question?
I'm sorry, I had a little trouble getting unmuted for a second.
No problem. Thank you.
There have been at least 4 different presentations, I believe, including the board book and tonight's presentation.
Okay. Can you just explain the process of this budget and how it is reviewed by the county?
Sure. So there is budget software that is required by the state. It's through what's called the New Jersey Homeroom, which is where we do our state reporting. And the data is entered in, meaning the revenues or the appropriations and the revenues that we anticipate through the budget. The budget software does its own calculations. They're not calculations done by the business administrator. You just enter in the agreed upon numbers after meeting with administration. And it calculates your all of your ramifications. It calculates all of the per student percents, your administrative cost lines, your enrollment adjustments, if applicable, your health adjustments, etc. And from that, you need to manage your tax levy within parameters of the 2% and any bank cap your board is indicating they're comfortable using. If you aren't able to balance the budget, then one of 2 things must happen. Either you have to identify additional revenues or you have to take out expenditures. The expenditures, the current year that you put into the budget software, so example this year, the 2021 columns are for the projected numbers. The numbers that are put into the current year, so the 1920 year, are your February 1st actual expenses. You have to run a report dated February 1st, which has to be sent to the county for comparison, and those are the data numbers that are entered in. So they rarely match the actual budgeted amount because you're not all the way through the year, and as different things come up and transfers happen and things change, money is often moved throughout the year. So the comparative numbers that you see are not end of year actuals, nor are they compared to the previous budget year budgeted numbers. So when you talk about the word, and I'm getting off track for just a second, just to clarify one point, if I may. when you talk about cuts, like what are the cuts? That can mean a number of things. Are you looking at the cuts because there's a change in the February 1st actual versus the projected? Are you talking about cuts meaning what was proposed by the administrators and then didn't make it into the budget? Or are you talking about cuts meaning what was budgeted the year prior and what was budgeted in the current year? Because those are three different sets of comparisons. So it's really hard to answer some of those questions. Added to that, there's a uniform chart of accounts, which dictates pretty stringently where various items need to be placed within the budget in terms of what line they're supposed to be listed upon. And everything in the budget is placed on the appropriate lines according to the universal chart of accounts. In the past, that I have to say I don't always agree with where some of the numbers were placed. So they're placed where I was taught to put them, where I'm interpreting they belong based on the uniform chart of accounts. And in so doing, some of the lines look like they were decreased because items were placed elsewhere. And that's for compliance and following the uniform chart, which is what the state requires. So to get back to your question in terms of the process with the county, once everything is in balance and decisions have been made by administration regarding what's going to remain in the budget and what's going to come out, decisions have been made by the board in terms of comfort level of tax increases. Different numbers are played around with, like your reserve accounts, your potential extraordinary aid, et cetera, and you get the budget into balance. Then we do the presentation where we present to the board. That's generally where most of these questions would be asked, and a preliminary budget is approved. That goes to the county, and then the county approves the preliminary budget. And then once they've approved it, it can be made public, and then it just requires the public hearing, so the public has an opportunity to hear what and see what's in it, and then ratification of the budget, which is where we're at tonight.
Just to clarify, the county has approved this budget.
Yes.
And would they have approved this budget if there were significant mathematical errors in it?
No, but it's not possible for there to be significant mathematical errors because I don't do the math. The math happens in formulas that are within the software. So the math isn't done by the business administrator. We just put the numbers in and then the math happens. Then you make your decisions based on the data that's presented on a host and variety of screens that you have to go through and acknowledge and save and enter, various pieces of data. So it's not possible for there to be mathematical errors in the state software. And the presentation was it's a download of the state software, and I just color coded them a little differently so that you could tell the difference between the revenues and expenditures and labeled them a little kind of more nicely than they were initially when it was downloaded. So I'm not sure how, I'm not sure about the math errors. I'm thinking maybe they're looking at a total line instead of a subtotal line. I don't really know. Without sitting and looking, I can't really speak to that.
Okay. Dr. Cohn, I have a quick question for you. In your professional experience and your expertise, does this budget meet the needs of the district? And I believe you're muted if you would like to respond.
Here we go. I've been having some trouble with my mic. I apologize. I do believe that this budget meets the needs of our children.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Morris, I think there was a little bit of perhaps confusion in terms of the language that was used. Has the total budget amount gone up from last year?
No, it's gone down.
Okay. So what has gone up is the tax levy, but not the total budget.
That is correct. Because our revenues from other sources are not adequate to meet the totals of the expenditures. However, in the past, there are a lot of different tools, I guess we'll call them for lack of a better word, that can be used in the budget to meet shortfalls. one of them is to budget extraordinary aid, which I'm not comfortable doing. Another is to use maintenance reserve, which is not good practice, but it is something the district has been doing. And while I have appropriated less than has been used in the past, it was still necessary to make the budget meet. We have the drop in the state aid. I reduced the, I was conservative in the budgeting of tuition for various reasons, and trying to think if there's anything else that really was an impact. So again, it's just finding what's available, trying to transition into best practices to protect the district's resources. Something was mentioned about surplus. I don't really know what exactly that was referring to. 2.5% of the total budget should be available. I'm assuming that's what the question referred to, or $250,000, whichever is more. And for us, 2.5% is more. And as of January at the mid-year budget review, we were $9,000 short on that number. This year, we should reach where we need to be to have our reserves. Also in the past, some of that reserve money, called budgeted fund balance, had been used in the budget, and I opted not to use that so that we can maintain our reserves. And at this point, it's good that I did with the whole COVID situation, all of the unknowns. That may be funds that we need to tap for cash flows to move things forward.
Okay, I have one more question, and then I'd like to just quickly comment on negotiations. My last question is whether the allocations for special needs students has gone up or gone down.
Total? It's gone up significantly because of the additional staffing, as well as the program. I don't recall the name of the program. It's I believe it has to do with our multiply disabled students, and I apologize that I don't recall what that is, but it was a significant expense that was not in last year's budget, and we haven't paid all of by February 1st. So it does appear that that number is a little bit skewed. However, that is an increase in last year's budget as well as the staffing. And just to speak to the supply question, because it's come up so many times, the supplies for students are the supplies that were requested from the administrators. And some things had to be reduced because there's only so much revenue to meet the expenditures. And there comes a point where you have to make decisions about, how important, are some things versus other things. And while ideally no one wants to take anything out of the budget, I will say that the major things that were removed were things such as furniture, not supplies that would go toward the children. I will, however, say that most districts that I've been familiar with and in discussion with county VAs, there is a limit. You set a certain amount for supplies, and in the beginning of the year, teachers are given a certain dollar amount to stock their room, and principals have a discretionary amount for things that come up. You buy enough paper for adequate paper supplies in the beginning of the year, possibly again mid-year, depending what's happening. This district has a habit of ordering supplies throughout the year, which is not a good practice because there's no way to budget if it's just okay to, at any point in time, ask for more pencils or stickers or whatever it may be. So I'm going with the best practice and looking at ways to get better fiscal management, better internal control over our funds, which is definitely a business office goal. The supply numbers were reduced based on actual costs, based on everyone using their money early in the year and having better control over that. So I guess my answer in terms of supplies, it's mostly furniture and large items such as that, not pencils, not paper, not crayons, not glue, not things that the students need in order to learn. So I did just want to clarify that point as well.
Thank you. I'd like to clarify a few of the statements that were made about the agreement with the CTEA. First of all, the claim was made that there were no healthcare concessions. That will be news to the CTEA, who agreed to change their base healthcare plan in order to help save the district money and to save our CTEA members out-of-pocket money. So that is, in fact, not a correct statement. The second thing that I want to clarify is that there was a complaint that we made an agreement to pay retroactive raises to any employee who worked in the district during years covered by the contract that is just settled. And I want to just say that the negotiating committee asked for the New Jersey School Board Association to let us know what best practices are. And Ms. Morris also checked with business administrators in other districts. And the vast, vast majority of districts pay all people who worked under years covered by the contract what they deserve. And so that is best practices for many, many districts, not just ours. The last thing that I want to say about it is in terms of the % salary increases, in fact, what we agreed to was less than what the 2019 negotiating committee was willing to go up to. And so to have fellow board members who were just briefed in executive session and had 0 questions or 0 comments about the contract agreement to come out and publicly disparage the negotiating committee based on incorrect information, based on misrepresentations, is completely out of line, in my opinion. And I think that we have every right to be proud of, first of all, our teachers, and proud of the negotiating that we did. And for people who were not there to say that we went into those committee meetings and simply said, teachers, tell us what you want and we'll give you everything, would actually be completely disingenuous to what happened. In fact, what happened was we had meetings every other week for months trying to settle this. And not for nothing, but we are the last district in the entire state to settle a contract that expired in 2017. So that, in my opinion, does not put the students first, the children first, if we are willing to hold out and hold out and hold out for no financial benefit. That's all I have to say.
Well, I have some things in response to that. So unfortunately, we can't go into details of what was discussed and what prior negotiation committees offered, but if the percentage increases were higher from the prior, there were other things that would have supported that increase. And so it's unfortunate we can't compare and contrast, but there is additional misinformation now being shared. But not to continue this point too much longer, there's a reason why this negotiation took a long time. And they were waiting until you guys got on the board to get what they want. And that's what held us up.
What do you think that they got that they wanted besides a contract? They wanted a contract. And yes, they did get a contract. You are correct.
That is correct.
I know. How dare us give them a contract.
And 2 of us were not allowed to be on the committee to begin with.
Okay, I have some questions back to the budget, if that's not something that...
Yes, please.
Okay, so I also had some questions around the budget, particularly thinking about our students and the children as the driver of the budget and understanding how enrollment had changed through time and how the needs of our students had changed in the special services area. So Kelly, I'm wondering if you could bring back up your slides. I would like to see that slide with the changes in staffing again. Kelly, can you hear me? Ms. Morris, Mrs. Morris.
Sorry, I'm not able to unmute when I'm manipulating the screen, so I apologize. I'm sorry, which screen were you looking to see?
I was looking to see the slide where you had information about changes in staffing that are covered in this budget.
This one?
Yes. So I had asked many questions in the budget development around understanding how our enrollment had changed through time. So In last year's budget, 2019-2020 budget, we anticipated that we were going to have a 5.12% decrease in enrollment, or lose 63 students year over year. Now, we didn't actually lose those students, and so while we had a flat budget last year, that was on the understanding that we would be able to eliminate some staffing positions. Now, what we're doing here in this budget, it looks like we are adding positions back into our school district. That's correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. And so I asked Dr. Cohn for information about our 18-19 actual enrollment, our 19-20 projected enrollment that we used to create the budget last year, the actual enrollment this school year, as well as our projections for 2020, 2021. And so I found it, interesting as a parent of a second grader who had noticed some changes in my own child's classroom, that we underprojected several of the lower grades in our 19-20 budget. For example, kindergarten was underprojected by 18%, or essentially an entire class of students. Second grade was also underprojected by 12%, or similar to a class, half a class worth of students. So I am pleased to see that we're continuing to project that we have relatively flat enrollment, and it looks like we will be correcting some of the shortages that we experienced this year that could have impacted class size, particularly in second grade and kindergarten. Is that true?
I have to defer enrollment questions to Dr. Cohn.
Dr. Cohn, my question is just, are we anticipating that we will have an improved class size in the 2021 budget relative to what we experienced in 19-20?
I'm sorry, can you hear me? I'm having some trouble with my mic.
Yes, now I can hear you.
Thank you. I apologize. You're asking if we're going to have a better class size
than what we actually experienced in 19-20. The addition of the second grade teacher and some of the special ed teachers who will help with the inclusion classrooms that Alexa Ingram discussed in the last presentation.
I'm not sure I can say the word better. I think that our goal has been to maintain low class sizes. I think what I can address is that we had an unexpected influx, where we like to have people moving in. It did create some challenges this year. So we have prepared for that in a different way. So yes, I'm hoping better, if that answers your question.
Yes, that answers my question. I also had questions around our special services budget, and I wanted to thank Alexa Ingram for all of the information provided in the board book, as well as Dr. Cohn via email. And I really appreciate the increased understanding around how our needs have increased, which is the reason why the special education budget increased from $732,700 to $1.144 million from 19-20 to 2021. And so I did not understand that in the preliminary budget hearing. However, I asked several questions in between And I wanted to thank Dr. Cohn, Mrs. Morris, and Alexa for all of the input that has helped me to understand our needs and how we can meet them in this budget. And that's all I have.
Any additional questions?
I would also like to echo that I was somewhat confused by the original looking through the booklet, but the presentation done by Alexa was very, it made things very clear. My questions would be, if I got this right, that so this budget is actually less than last year's budget by a little bit, about 115,000.
Yes.
And that was with a contract that the teachers have, so those previous budgets weren't having to look completely at these contract issues. But according to Dr. Cohn, you said that, yes, it's the teachers told you that this contract is good. It meets the needs they have. Looking at our strategic planning, it meets, we were looking at social emotional learning and all that was moving forward. So hopefully we'll be able to move forward and get more steam going and everything happening. So the cuts, the asking to take 10% of cuts from different departments, is this just standard budgeting procedure? I know where my employment it is.
Yes, to an extent. So when we reached a point where we were unable to balance the budget, Dr. Cohn and I had several conversations, and it was difficult to choose, what for her to make that decision. She wanted to push it down to the administrators because they're the ones really living with the budget. They're the ones working with the budget. So rather than make decisions for them, she and I agreed we would ask for reductions at our next leadership team meeting and give them a goal percentage. I will tell you that not everyone reduced by 10% because it just didn't make sense. And some reduced by a bit more than 10%. It was really just a go back and look and see what you can live with and what you can't live with type of an adjustment. It wasn't a mathematical where, you must take off this number of dollars, one way or another. That's not how it had occurred. It was simply just a decision to push it down to the people who really have to manage and live with the numbers as opposed to higher level decision making. And I think it was fair, and I appreciate that everyone made an effort to really take a close look and respond as they did.
And have any of the teachers or any in the administration said we really need more, this is going to not move us forward but keep status quo?
No, not to me. Dr. Cohn?
Of course, we have not talked to the teachers about this, and I have not had that feedback from the administrators.
Thank you.
Any other additional questions or comments?
Yeah, I have a question. Ms. Morris, when I made that chart just trying to visualize for myself where the big changes were, and I was putting together my own analysis of what was really changing versus where line items were just getting moved to where they needed to be. And it seems like the reduction in state aid that we envision and the reduction in tuition revenues add up to, I guess, about $760,000. And then the size of the tax levy that is needed to make this budget work is under $750,000. So it's roughly offsetting those reductions in revenues. Is that correct?
I think the reduction numbers for state aid and tuition are not quite as high as you just stated, but yes, in addition to the reduction in use of our reserve funds to make the budget work and a lower number budgeted from extraordinary aid, that's where the tax increase comes from.
Mm-hmm. And then the fairly significant increases to the special services area that are mostly covered by the presentation that Ms. Ingram gave last time.
Correct.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. I feel based on comments made, I want to be clear first off that I, as board president, board member, do not create the budget. I feel that it was sort of implied that I had a part in it with on what is putting children first. But what I can tell you, Ms. Brooks and Ms. Grant, that keeping class sizes small puts children first. That adding 6 special ed teachers puts children first. That treating people right puts children first. I've said this before when I was not on the board, and I'll say it again. What I'd like to know is how putting teachers last in any way puts our children first.
It was never, ever in my intention to put teachers last, no matter what anyone thinks. However, I do feel that our questions should have been answered more clearly so that we understood without having to create our own forms of spreadsheets or PowerPoint presentations or sit with a calculator, which I did for several hours, to try to figure out where money is going. I do not feel that I was equally included in explanations because questions that we asked were not answered. What you are hearing is largely frustration with obfuscation and lack of clarity. If things were put into different line items in the budget, shouldn't there have been some form of key so that we could see more clearly what was changed? Then, it was confusing. And others have admitted that when they first looked at it, it looked as though money was being changed from one category to another willy-nilly. It is not a clear explanation. For all I know, this is a perfect budget, but I don't understand it, and my questions were not answered.
And in my opinion, there's no excuse for questions not being answered, particularly in something as important as the budget. And there's no excuse for it. And when I hear, Lana, after a conversation I had with you over the weekend, that whenever you provide questions to the BA, you get answers right away. Ms. Kaltenbach just said she's had answers provided to her, and I'm not getting them. That's frustrating, and it's wrong.
Ms. Grant, can you please clarify in the context I made that comment?
Yesterday, was it Sunday? When, Jesus, we were talking about I'm getting no answers, and you said I don't understand because when I get send questions out, I get answers.
There is one piece you are missing.
Oh, really?
I said that it is currently a weekend and that I cannot force district employees to work when I feel that it is necessary. I said I can send it, and that is the extent of my ability. And that I received.
I wasn't talking about the weekend. I was talking in general that in the last 3 or 4 meetings when I've asked questions, I haven't gotten answers. So I wasn't talking about answers over a weekend. It was a general conversation, which you responded with a general response that basically said, well, during the week when I send answers, questions, I get answers. Well, I've had questions during the week as well, and I haven't gotten answers.
I would also like to clarify my statement, please. I didn't say that I asked specific questions of Ms. Morris. I said that when we asked questions at board meetings, we were given explanations as to why line items were categorized differently. And I felt like that answered all of our questions. I never said I got specific answers because I never asked specific directions of her via email. I didn't feel the need to because my questions had been answered from the conversations we'd been having. And I just wanted to clarify my comment.
Okay, we are going to I'm going to close the board questions, seeing that there were none to go. I am going to open the floor for public comments for budget-related questions only, please, and limiting this comment section to 20 minutes. In the event we have an onslaught of people, I will gladly extend. So, Brian,
would you like to do phone numbers
first?
Wait.
Yes, phone numbers first, but I just want to, I think it's been a little while since I talked about, public comments, so I think I should address it. If anyone in the audience would like to address the board, please click the participant button at the bottom of your screen. On the bottom right-hand side, there should be an option to raise hand. We will recognize you and unmute your microphone. If you could then please state your name and address. Each person will have up to 3 minutes. We will attempt to answer all questions once the speaker has finished. If there are any phone numbers showing at the time of public comment, we will unmute them to allow them the option to comment since they are unable to use the other feature. Okay, so I think we should go with comments first, if you don't mind, and then to phone numbers? Or hands first and then to phone numbers?
You got it.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Malloy, you have been unmuted.
Thank you, Mr. Farkas. Kevin Malloy, David Post Road, Annandale. First things first, I'd like to wish Dr. Cohn all the best in her future endeavors. She's been an asset to this district during her time here, and she'll be sorely missed. A few quick comments. One, any budget presentation should be shown comparative. The fact that this was not as disappointing, and I don't know if it's due to oversight, sloppiness, or deliberate lack of comparison. Two, you don't need to be a BA to know that salary is higher than special ed. Salary is the higher item than special ed. Three, Ms. Brennan, you mentioned that you didn't build this budget. You're the board president. You should be integral and involved every minute of this budget. I think it's disturbing that Ms. Brooks and Ms. Grant are expressing real concern, and they're being told that they're being personally attacking people. I didn't see it that way. That's just my characterization. I also found it interesting that Ms. Kaltenbach made a very spirited defense of teachers and their rights to a better salary, and we appreciate that, particularly after saying that she wasn't, in fact, in the pocket of the teachers. So I don't have any more comments. I think that this board has a lot of work to do on transparency. So my questions are, what is the current amount for salary and benefits broken out on this budget? What is the comparative to last year? Not in percentage, but in dollars. What is the percentage increase and dollar increase in benefit costs for this district? Thank you very much. You can.
I'm sorry, Mr. Malloy, were you done?
Yes, I was just saying thank you, and you can mute me.
Okay, sorry. Ms. Chioda, you are now unmuted.
Hello?
Hello.
No, that's me.
Sorry, Lon.
Ms. Chioda? Hello? We cannot hear you if you're speaking. I don't know if you have maybe the mute button pushed.
She has been unmuted.
Well, she might have herself maybe muted. Is there a chat function to find out if?
Not for the webinar, there is not.
Perhaps we can come back to her.
Yes. Yeah, let's go on to the telephone numbers.
The number ending in 6164, you are unmuted.
Do you have a public comment? I'm hearing, are we having an audio issue? Is anyone, I'm not hearing anything.
Nope, they are not speaking, so I muted them. The number ending in 3869, you are now unmuted.
This is Dawn Chioda, 95 Blossom Hill Road. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. General question. Based on the state of our state, how would our district be impacted if the state declares bankruptcy? How will that impact our budget?
Do you have additional questions?
Will this budget be voted on tonight? And I guess those are my two. The other ones were already asked.
Okay. Thank you.
That number has been muted.
Okay, and I'm since it was the same person as their hand was up, so we were able to cover her.
Yes, and I see no more hands.
I see no more budget-related questions. Okay, so I cannot answer Mr. Malloy's question off the top of my head. Right now, Ms. Chioda, the budget is set to be voted on tonight. We can have when we motion in second, we can have a discussion and the board can decide if it continues on or not. So then speaking of that, we will go forward to look, Ms. Morris, can you answer either of those two questions?
Well, the question about the state, if the state were to declare bankruptcy, to be honest, I don't know how that would impact state aid. I would expect that we would probably not be receiving the award that the budget is based upon. Fortunately, the state aid is only about 10% of our budget, so it's not as significant as if it were, a larger percentage. I've not ever had an experience where I've experienced the state declaring bankruptcy. I imagine we would have to make some hard decisions about where to, what we could do to reduce our expenditures. There's also the option of discussing with our investment advisors potential short-term notes to get us through.
From a legal standpoint, I'll say this. Of all the things that you folks have to worry about, don't put the state declaring bankruptcy on that list.
Thank you. Okay, so we are going to look for a motion for 20BA28. Oh, actually, I have a question before we proceed. Ms. Morris, is there a reason we separated these out? These two BA sections?
Traditionally, we vote on the budget first and then separately, and then the other items. That's the only reason. If you'd prefer to do one vote for all of it, that's fine as well.
Hey, Lana, we had two hands kind of shoot up. Are we closed for the budget comment section?
No, we can go back to those.
Okay. Mr. Malloy, you are unmuted again.
Yeah, just following up, Ms. Morris, what is the salary change in dollar and percentage amounts year over year? What is the benefit percentage change and dollar amounts year over year?
I apologize. Kevin, could you repeat that one more time for me?
Yes, repeating my question to Ms. Morris, or you. What is the amount of salary change, dollars and percentage, year over year? What is the amount of benefits expense change, dollar amount and percentage, year over year?
As I stated earlier, I don't have those line items immediately available in front of me. I'd be happy to respond to an email if you'd like to send that to me as a reminder, and I can get you those numbers later this week if that's acceptable.
That's fine. I would think that you should have those numbers prepared for tonight. It is the budget vote. I'm just saying. I think as a member of the public, you should have had that available to the public and the full board.
And then now we have we have Penny.
Mrs. McFadden, you have been unmuted.
Yes, thank you. I really felt the need to make a comment because I found that some of the comments of some of the board members was really offensive and flat out untrue. I have felt frustration from past board leadership that far outweigh waiting a week for a question to be answered. Try waiting 4 years for a contract. To the current board leaders and negotiation team, I feel you guys should feel proud for what we have accomplished. In the past, the leadership had neglected to truly rectify the teacher contract issues for 6 years, to suggest that the Clinton Township Education Association does not put our students first is shameful. The teachers have made concessions, and I personally, as co-chair of the negotiation team, will realize a negative net for the first 2 years of this contract due to the lack of Chapter 78 relief. If that doesn't demonstrate how much teachers care about the students of this district, you are not paying attention to what really matters. I just felt I needed to add that. Thank you.
Oh, and we have another hand.
Mrs. Dominakis, you have been unmuted.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I just wanted to, I guess, ask for clarification on something. My understanding is that despite the teacher's contract not having been settled since 2017, the budget has included an amount of money to cover the negotiated contract when it did finally get settled for the last couple of years. So it's my understanding that that money has already been kind of banked, if you want to call it that, these last few years. And the current budget that's up for a vote tonight is, in fact, lower than the budget last year, correct? That was my question. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe Ms. Morris has already has responded to that the actual budget is lower, correct, Ms. Morris?
Yes, it is a bit less. The expenditures are a bit less than last year, yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I am going to now officially close the floor to the budget public comment section. And so I'm looking for a motion for 20BA 28 through 31.
Motion.
Thank you, Allison. Apologies. Okay, looking for a second?
Second.
I'm going to give that to Ms. Rihamaki. Sorry, motion. Second. Okay, discussion. Is there anyone in favor of tabling tonight's budget vote? We would have to, that would entail having to have a special meeting to adopt it prior to the deadline by the state. I do not hear anyone, so I will ask for a roll call vote.
Dr. Brasher?
Yes.
Ms. Brooks?
No.
Ms. Emery?
Yes.
Ms. Grant?
No.
Dr. Grantham?
Yes.
Mr. Hornick?
Yes.
Ms. Kaltenbach?
Yes.
Dr. Rihamaki?
Yes.
Ms. Brennan?
Yes.
So moved.
Okay, do you want to do the rest of the BA action items? Oh, sorry. That was my timer for 3 minutes. Did you want to do the rest or do you want me to go through?
I can read them.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Action 20BA 032, motion to approve line item transfers for the period ending April 27th, 2020. Just as a note before moving on to the next, we had some discrepancies with the board secretary's report and the treasurer's report versus the bank statements. So we did go back and redo the November of board secretary's reports in partnership with our auditor. And she was able to give us some adjusting entries to fix some mistakes that were made with the opening entries to get us clean moving forward, which is why we are approving amended November board secretary's reports. And until we had a final number for November, we were unable to move forward with December, January, and beyond. Our treasurer has brought us current, so we will be going through and approving all of the board secretaries and treasurers reports from November through March this evening. So action item 20 BA 33, motion to approve the amended November 2019 board secretaries and treasurers reports. Pursuant to NJAC 6:23-2.11C4, I, Kelly Morris, hereby certify that as of November 30th, 2019, after review of the monthly financial reports and upon consultation with the appropriate district officials, that, to the best of my knowledge, no major account or fund has been overexpended in violation of NJAC 6A23-2.11A1, and that sufficient funds are available to meet the district's financial obligations for the remainder of the fiscal year pending audit adjustment and review. BA action item 20 BA 34 is for December 2019 board secretary and treasurer's report. Action 20 BA 035 is same for January. Action item 20 BA 36, again, same for February, and BA 37, same for March board secretary's reports. Action item 20 BA 38 is to approve total payment of bills from March 17th to April 27th in the amount of $2,450,700.66. Details are in the chart below. Action item 20 BA 39 to approve the following board minutes: February 13th, February 24th, March 16th, and March 9th. And item 20 BA 40 we read this at an earlier meeting, but it was a work session, so we were unable to move forward with a vote. This is in regard to the Assembly Bill 3902 that I discussed earlier, which would allow the municipality to defer making their tax payments to the school district. There is, as I mentioned again, the joint opposition with the NJEA, the School Boards Association, the School Business Officials, and the Principals Association to block this legislation from moving forward. And districts have been asked to pass a resolution and send it to the New Jersey School Board Association for their files and support of their opposition. I'll read that aloud. Item 20 BA 40, whereas Assembly Bill 3902, currently pending in the state legislature, would authorize the Department of Community Affairs to permit municipalities to delay the quarterly transmission of property tax revenues to school districts during gubernatorial declared emergencies. And whereas New Jersey's public schools are highly dependent on property tax revenue to support education programs, and on average, local property taxes constitute close to 60% of public school revenue, with the percentage even greater in a significant number of districts. And whereas a delay in payments from the municipality would result in a financial crisis for school districts, seriously disrupting the educational process and bringing it to a halt. And whereas, although public school buildings are closed during the current health emergency, the education of our students is taking place through remote learning and home instruction. And whereas continued timely transmission of school property taxes is critical for the education process to continue without interruption. And whereas, even though municipalities are designated as the authorities to collect property taxes, these taxes are levied for specific purposes, for example, municipal school, county fire district, and these obligations must continue to be met. And as currently written, A3902, which is intended to ease a financial burden on municipalities, will place a severe strain on school districts and the students and families that they serve. And whereas the Clinton Township Board of Education recognizes the impact of the current public health emergency on the state and local governments, as well as local school districts, but believes this legislation would worsen the situation for our communities. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Clinton Township Board of Education urges the State Senate and the Governor to oppose A3902, and be it further resolved that this resolution be delivered to Governor Phil Murphy, State Senate President Stephen M. Sweeney, Assembly Speaker Craig Coughlin, and the local legislative district representatives in the State Senate and General Assembly, and be it further resolved that copies of this resolution be sent to the New Jersey School Board Association. Next meeting is May 4th, work session. May 11th is our regular meeting, and then June 1st is the a work session. And just as a note, June 1st is the last scheduled work session of the 6-month trial period of Committee of the Whole.
Okay, thank you. Looking for a motion for BA 20 BA 32 through 20 BA 40.
Motion.
Okay, I heard I heard Dr. Rihamaki. Second?
Second. Kate.
Okay, thank you. Okay, discussion?
I have a question about this resolution. So I get that it's a generic thing that's been provided by the School Boards Association, but I mean, it's not, I feel it would probably be important to convey, since our district is one of the ones where, you know, it's local property taxes constitute well more than 60% of public school revenue, as we have just discussed ad nauseum, to perhaps, you know, note that it comprises 89% of our district. But I understand this is a generic thing, but it just seems like we are a district that's going to be hurt even more than the average district in New Jersey by this proposed legislation. I guess I'm not proposing amending it. It seems like strange for us to make a statement that doesn't fully reflect the impact on our local district.
If I can comment on that, Dr. Grantham, I agree with your point. I think it's in our best interest to keep it generic, because this is also not in any way accusatory of our municipal government, who, as far as I'm concerned, we have a collegial relationship with. So leaving it generic, I think, puts the target where it should be, which is aimed at the state legislature rather than at our local government colleagues.
Okay.
Any additional questions?
I have a couple questions. Ms. Morris, on the board secretary and treasurer report, it says interim balance at the top. Is that interim until we vote on it, or can you just explain that for me?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure where you're looking.
So on the board secretary and treasurer reports, all of them in the top corner say interim balance on the top of the sheet. And is it interim for what reason at this point?
I'm sorry, I would have to take a closer look at that. Those were done by our treasurer. My initial thought would be that it's interim because it changes month to month, so it's interim at this status stuff throughout the year. But I can ask her what she means by interim just to confirm and let you know.
Can we vote on it? I mean, if it potentially is an error, right? If it says interim and it shouldn't, would we be voting on a document that's not correct?
I don't believe so. I mean, I'd have to pull it up and look and see what you're talking about. I have to look at the actual document. I just looked at the numbers to see that they were in balance with the bank statement.
Yeah, I'm not worried about the balance. I mean, I absolutely trust that. I just want to make sure that the verbiage on the top is correct and that we're not. That's all.
Okay, I'm sorry. I don't know quite how to answer your question. I don't believe it would be a problem. I don't know why it would. I'm not sure what the term interim means to this particular treasurer. So I can certainly ask her that question. Vito, do you have a thought on that?
My only thought in response to the question about voting a document where there may be an error is, if there is, you're meeting again in 2 weeks and you can simply do an amended motion to adjust that if it's necessary.
Okay. Does that sound acceptable to you, Ms. Grant?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. Two questions on the bill list. I don't know if you can pull that up, but A1514, 427, it says ICS Title, I guess, 1 and 2. Do we have to vote on that? And I apologize if we've voted on it already. I just couldn't locate it. in prior board agendas. So do we have to vote on that anytime we distribute money to ICS from the state?
Yes, we do. It's sent as a check. Anytime we cut a check, we need a purchase order, and anytime we cut a purchase order, we have to put it on the bill list.
Okay, and did we vote on this already?
Well, we voted in the beginning of the year. All of the funds were approved. The funds are not sent in bulk. They're sent when they're spent.
So we don't have to do it every time we're going to distribute money?
No, because it's done when the awards are in the beginning of the year when we're given the full amounts.
Okay.
And we vote on it, and then it's paid as it's spent. So if you approved $1,000 and then they spent $300 3 times, you wouldn't have to approve.
Okay.
Those 3 times. You already approved the actual allotment.
Okay. And then in A15126 on 427 again, it says consultative services. Who is that for? It doesn't name anybody.
I would have to look up the actual check and look at the documentation that's attached.
Okay. Will we be voting tonight on March 9th?
We will not.
We need, okay, so do we need to amend that one then?
I've already removed it from the agenda.
Okay. All right. So I'm working off an old agenda. Thank you.
Sure.
I just want to bring to the attention that we have a bylaw 168 that says when we send out minutes to board members and approve them, that all of the supporting agenda materials need to go with that. And so I'm wondering if we can put that policy in place as we move forward on agendas.
Can you elaborate on that? What do you mean by supporting documents?
So it says in policy 168 that a copy of the minutes of the previous meetings shall be sent to all board members for review along with agenda materials. So it's just a policy that says when we get the minutes to look at, or that the supporting material is with that.
Yeah, you always have the supporting material. I link it through all of those blue lines in the agenda that you receive. If you click on them, they link you right to the supporting documents within the folder that you have access to.
Okay. Okay.
Ms. Grant, if you'd like to call me and review next time one goes out, and I can help you make sure you have everything you need.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, so then Ms. Morris, roll call vote, please.
Dr. Brasher?
Yes.
Ms. Brooks?
Yes on everything, but I need to abstain on the minutes for March 16th. I was not in attendance.
I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing. I heard you were going to abstain on something, but I did not.
Sorry, on 20 BA 039, I must abstain on the March 16th minutes as I was not at the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Emery?
Yes.
Ms. Grant?
Yes to everything, but no to 20 BA 039.
Dr. Grantham?
Yes.
Mr. Hornick?
Yes.
Ms. Kaltenbach?
Yes.
Dr. Rahamaki?
Yes.
Ms. Brennan?
Yes.
So moved.
We are moving on to facilities and finance. We have 11 action items for facilities and finance. They include professional development, staff travel, graduate coursework approval, setting preschool rate for next year, and approving NJSBA to help conduct our search for a permanent superintendent. I am looking for a motion on 20-FF130 through 20-FF141.
Motion.
Actually, I apologize. Are there additional, did I get my numbers wrong? I apologize. It looks like it should go to 153. So I will, It starts at 1. I'm sorry, I was editing at night. Am I allowed to go back after I motion?
It's the agenda says 143 to 153.
That is, yes, that is, I apologize. I wrote the wrong numbers, probably for another section.
So a quick question. I have 154 here. Are we not voting on 154? Or
I don't want to speak out of turn, but I believe we were missing a number 146, and maybe it got put to a different, they got moved up, and that would be explaining for the 153.
so it's prior 154, 153 then?
I have action number 153 as the motion to approve the services of the New Jersey School Boards Association. Is that what you have?
Yep, that's right. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, so I am looking for, Vito, am I allowed to go back and fix the numbers like that?
The mover and seconder just need to agree with a friendly amendment to the revised numbers.
Okay, I don't think we had a seconder. I think we just had one motion, and I'm not sure who that was from.
I think it was Scott.
Okay, are you okay with me correcting the numbers, Scott?
I am.
One of the agenda actually does say 143 to 153. The agenda is correct.
Yes, no, I didn't have it. I didn't say it correctly because I had written down something else.
Oh, I apologize. I misunderstood. Okay, thank you.
Yes, the numbers are 143 through 153.
Okay, so that's been properly moved. You just need a second, and then you can have a discussion about it.
Okay, looking for a
Second.
second. Was that
Second.
Ms. Brasher?
That's Ms. Brasher.
Okay, thank you. Discussion?
I have a question on what is now 153. Is there a contract that we should look at regarding school boards?
I do have I have the template of the contract, but we have not started working on it yet.
You mean the contract that we would sign to use their services?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we should table that one and get that out with the work session.
Yes.
We are going to table 153.
Thank you.
Do we need to do anything? Do I need to remove or?
Again, as a friendly amendment, if the mover and seconder agree to remove it, you don't need to have a vote to table.
I agree.
Ms. Brasher? Are you okay?
Yes. Can you? I'm okay with that, but could you just clarify that there needed to be a contract in order to vote on it? Is that why we're tabling it? That's my question.
Yes. Usually we share it before to read it.
Okay, so I agree then.
Any other questions? Roll call vote, please.
Dr. Brasher?
Yes.
Ms. Brooks?
Yes.
Ms. Emery?
Yes.
Ms. Grant?
Yes.
Dr. Grantham?
Yes.
Mr. Hornick?
Yes.
Ms. Kaltenbach?
Yes.
Dr. Rizamaki?
Yes.
Ms. Brennan?
Yes.
So moved.
Okay, now we're going to move on to personnel. We have 8 action items here. So I am going to look for a motion for 20P229 through 20P236.
Motion.
Okay, that's Catherine. A second?
Second.
Is that Ms. Kaltenbach?
Yes.
Thank you. Discussion. Any questions? Can we get a roll call vote, please?
Dr. Brasher?
Dr. Brasher?
Yes.
Ms. Brooks?
Yes.
Ms. Emery?
Yes.
Ms. Grant?
Abstain.
Dr. Grantham?
Yes.
Mr. Hornick?
Yes.
Ms. Kaltenbach?
Yes.
Dr. Rahamaki?
Yes.
Ms. Brennan?
Yes.
So
There are no policy items for tonight. We will move on to curriculum. Dr. Cohn, you wanted to speak to this?
Yes, hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I apologize. I've been having mic issues all night. I would like to table the world language item to next month, if that's okay. We've had some delays with the closure, so we'd be more prepared for that next month, if that's okay.
Okay. So no vote. Negotiations for CTE and CTAA, no update. Ad hoc committee for superintendent search. I don't believe there is an update. Please correct me if I am wrong. Okay, moving on to old business of the board. I hear no old business of the board. I will move on to new business of the board. Still not hearing any business. So we will move on to the second recognition of the public. At this time, we've reached the second public comment section. If anyone in the audience would like to address the board, please click the participation button at the bottom of your screen. On the bottom right-hand side, there should be an option to raise hand. We will recognize you and unmute your microphone. If you could then please state your name and address. Each person will have up to 3 minutes. We will attempt to answer all questions once the speaker has finished. If there are any phone numbers showing at the time of public comment, we will unmute them to allow them the option to comment since they are unable to use the other feature. This comment section will be limited to 20 minutes. Do we see any hands?
I see no hands, but one phone number.
Okay, if
the number ending in 6164, you are now unmuted. And they have left the meeting.
okay, so they do not have a comment. Seeing no hands, we are going to close this floor to the second public comment section. Thank you everyone for joining this evening. Ms. Morris, can you please read the executive session statement?
Whereas, while the Senator Byron M. Baer Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-6 et seq. requires all meetings of the Clinton Township Board of Education to be held in public, NJSA 10:4-12b sets forth 9 types of matters that may lawfully be discussed in executive session, i.e. without the public being permitted to attend. And whereas the Clinton Township Board of Education has determined that the following issues are permitted by NJSA 10:4-12b to be discussed without the public in attendance and shall be discussed during an executive session. Whereas the nature of the matters to be discussed, reviewed, or heard before the board detailed as specifically as possible without undermining the need for confidentiality pursuant to NJSA 18A:37-13.2 et sec. Shall include legal issues. We don't have CTEA anymore. My apologies. And personnel. Whereas the length of the executive session is estimated to be 60 minutes, after which the meeting shall reconvene and proceed with business wherein action may be taken. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Clinton Township Board of Education will go into executive session for the above stated reasons. Be it further resolved that the board hereby declares that its discussion of the aforementioned subject will be made public at such time as the reason for confidentiality no longer exists.
Madam President, if I may, in that motion before it is enacted, the phrase legal issues should be replaced with the phrase pending litigation.
Okay, I've made the change. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we are looking for a motion.
Motion.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hornick. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Grantham. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The time is 10:46. I'm going to allow board members, if you can meet into the executive session at 10:50. That'll give you a couple moments if you need. I believe we're back.
And
Brian, are you still here? Okay, great. And we're still recording?
We are recording.
Awesome. Thank you. I am looking for a motion to reconvene the public session.
Motion.
Was that you, Catherine Emery?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Second?
Beth says two.
Thank you, Beth. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The time is 11:36 p.m. Okay, looking for a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Oh, Allison, thank you. Second?
Second.
Is that Kaltenbach?
Yes.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The time is 11:36 p.m. Thank you all. Have a wonderful night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.